Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I am Mr. Warren Hayes, and we are going to be talking about professional wrestling for a while tonight. Oh my goodness. I'm recording this on January 10, 2023. It has been a crazy few days, and we're going to get into it tonight. But first and foremost, thank you all for listening, for watching right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes. If you are listening to this already, consider giving the video a like or a subscription as well to the channel. Those things help out tremendously and is a great way to show some support for the show as well. And if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, I appreciate you a great deal. 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, 5-star rating on Spotify. Those things are also great ways to help support the show and help it grow very, very simply. And look, and on top of it all, there's the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord that you can join. The links are in the description. We'd love to have you come and hang out there. And of course, you can become a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel on YouTube, and that way you get access to members-only live streams where we continue talking about pro wrestling in many different ways, such as on the Going Broadway shows. So that stuff is fantastic. Also, don't forget, on Thursdays I do my AEW Dynamite review, which is available both on YouTube and on audio, per usual. But holy smokes, I had a nice show planned tonight where we're gonna talk about New Japan and Wrestle Kingdom and just review the shows and get really have a nice chill time. But Vince McMahon had to come and kill the vibe. And then just as I started recording, we got the news about Stephanie McMahon resigning. So we're going to talk about all of that. Vince McMahon returning, Stephanie McMahon resigning. We're going to review Wrestle Kingdom and talk about New Year's Dash, excuse me. Oh, it's been a long one and it's been a long day, but I am really excited that you're here. So without further ado, let's get to it. Thank you very much. Wrestling, people. Wrestling. Okay. We're all ready to go. Weekly wrestling inspection. Let's do the jingle. Let's get into it. So as I'm recording this, there is breaking news, but it all ties into everything that's happened over the past week, right? Don't start dropping Jay White bombs in the chat, folks. I don't know if I can take it tonight. I'm only one man. Or maybe I end up doing a 6-hour stream. I don't know. Listen, last week, I was watching all of this wonderful pro wrestling coming out of Japan, right? I got into the Noah's the New Year show, which was a pretty good show, and a very good second or first main event. It was a good show, and then you get into Wrestle Kingdom and everything that entails. It's fantastic, and New Year's Dash, and I'm like, you know what? Next week is going to be lovely on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I'm just going to sit down and I'm going to review Wrestle Kingdom and New Year's Dash, and we're just gonna have the loveliest time, just chatting about pro wrestling and all the great things that came out of pro wrestling. But then Vince McMahon decided to kill the vibe. I'm like, no, Warren, you're not gonna be able to do any of that shit, pal. You're gonna have to talk about me, because I'm the chairman, I'm the boss. We're going to take a minute we're going to walk through all of this, okay? Because I feel like the only way to tackle all of this is if we do a nice little recap, okay? Are y'all with me here? Are we all good? Let's go back in time. Not that long ago, the Wall Street Journal was reporting that there were new sexual assault allegations coming up against Vince McMahon, right? This was like December 13th, something like that. Plus, in that bit of news, in that bit of news, in that article that the Wall Street Journal pulled out, there was a rumor. They had heard. The reporters had heard. It just come across their brain space that Vince McMahon was thinking about coming back to WWE, and we all chuckled and laughed it off, and we're like, "What is this? What are we even talking about?" Oh, a couple of weeks passed, right? The new year, Happy New Year, everyone, and all that good stuff, right? And, we're all getting into the moon. We're already thinking about, hey, you know what? The Chinese New Year's coming up. That's on January 22nd, if I'm not mistaken. So we're like, hey, let's get into the mood for the Chinese New Year, right? Everyone's having a good time. And then the Wall Street Journal reported that Vince McMahon will be electing himself as well as Michelle Wilson and George Barrios, former presidents of WWE, to WWE's board of directors. They were reporting this on January 5th. And took everyone a little bit by surprise, like a good, like a good nuke should. No one expects a nuclear war. On January 5th, the same day that this report comes out of the Wall Street Journal, okay? Vince McMahon himself, not World Wrestling Entertainment, Vince McMahon published a press release confirming the report, confirming his intent to return and appoint himself, Barrios and Wilson, to the board and remove 3 directors. Now I'm going to read from the press release. Maybe some of you have read it by now, especially if you hang around the social media places or the places like the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord, which you should absolutely join. But for posterity's sake, I'm just going to read some excerpts, rather long excerpts, but excerpts nonetheless. Mr. McMahon's new role will enable unified decision-making through the company's upcoming media rights negotiations and a parallel full review of the company's strategic alternatives, which Mr. McMahon believes is the right course of action and in the best interests of WWE and WWE shareholders amidst the current dynamics in the media and entertainment industry. As Mr. McMahon has communicated to the board, he believes there is a narrow window of opportunity to create significant value for all shareholders, and that to do so, the strategic alternatives review must occur in tandem with the media rights negotiations. He also expressed to the board that he believes these 2 initiatives require Mr. McMahon's direct participation, leadership, and support as controlling shareholder. Okay? Is that good? The things that we have to keep in mind here, the things that we have to that we have to zero in here. Oh, not many of us trust them. As proof today, the thing that we have to zero in here specifically, right, is the idea of strategic alternatives, the revision of the strategic alternative procedures, review, the strategic alternatives review. And make no bones about it. If you read this press release last week, as most of us did, as I said, if your read was anything else than, oh, Vince is putting himself back in power, I don't know what to tell you. You're reading it wrong. But this is exactly what it is. It is Vince bringing himself back into a situation where he can control the company. Not that he couldn't already, right? Because, again, maybe as a quick friendly reminder here, Vince McMahon is the majority shareholder of WWE, therefore the majority owner of the company. He owns approximately a third of the shares of the company, but the shares that he owns are Class B shares, which give every one of his shares, each one of his shares are worth 10 votes, as opposed to the rest of us minions who would, plebeians who would buy shares in WWE. We'd get Class A shares, where one Class A share is equal to one vote. So despite the fact that Vince McMahon owns only a third of the shares, his voting power is tremendous. It's worth like, I think 81% of the votes. So he's the majority. He's in control of the company. He's in control of the board, of the shareholders in that aspect. Let's continue into the press release. Another quote. This is a quote from Vince McMahon in the press release. Vince says, "The only way to fully capitalize on this opportunity is for me to return as executive chairman and support the management team in negotiations for our media rights, and to combine that with a review of strategic alternatives." We're back talking about strategic alternatives and reviewing them. "My return will allow WWE, as well as any transaction counterparties, to engage in these processes, knowing they will have the support of the controlling shareholder." All right. So essentially, what he's saying here is that since I'm going to be back in control, everyone that we negotiate with, I will be in approval of. Because let's just make a hypothetical here really quickly. Before all of this came down, let's say Nick Khan waltzes into, I don't know, Endeavor, right? And he sits down with Ari, what's his name, at Endeavor, and they start negotiating, and Nick has he gets this great offer, and he goes back to the board of directors, because the board of directors have to approve a sale, obviously, and he puts it down. Vince could look at the offer and say, "Nope, go back. I'm not approving this offer," right? So Vince has to go back and either renegotiate or negotiate with someone else, right? Vince could just be like a stopping block throughout the entire way, because let's not forget, just as like we mentioned, right? Vince McMahon, 80% of voting power, nothing gets approved without him supporting it. It's just as simple as that. So what he's saying here is that, look, I might as well be back on the board, and I'm going to insert myself into the negotiations and it'll go smoother, because everything that's going to happen, I'm going to approve of. So no one will have to come check with me or pitch it to me. I'll be involved in the work. Which, if we're being just very, if we're being very Cartesian about it, makes sense. Makes more sense for the guy who has all the approval power to be involved in the negotiations, right? Rather than him potentially being a stopping block for things moving forward if he's unsatisfied with how these negotiations are going without him being involved. Hope that all makes sense. Want to say hello to Sleeping Angels? And Mr. Fretz was here, who used his membership milestone message. 30 months, a member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. Thank you very much, Fretz. Says, well, this is interesting. You said it, pal. That's the understatement of the day so far. What's up? Well, here we go. And William Davis, nice to see you, member of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. Good to see you. And yes, Ari Emmanuel. Now, we also learn prior to delivering written consent, McMahon sent out 2 separate letters to the board in late December. Following conversations with representatives of the company, both before and after Mr. McMahon's most recent letter on December 31st, Mr. McMahon determined, consistent with his rights as controlling shareholder, that the steps announced today are necessary to maximize value for all WWE shareholders. In conjunction with the changes to WWE's board, Mr. McMahon's written consent also includes certain amendments to the company's bylaws to ensure that WWE's corporate governance continues to properly enable and support shareholders' rights. So this is the horse that McMahon is riding. Shareholder value. That me being a part of these negotiations brings value to shareholders. I am going to maximize their investment, and I'm the only one who can do this. This is the horse. This is his battle horse right now. This is where he's jumping in on. And then, as we noted here, the press release says that he's going to include amendments to the company's bylaws to ensure that the WWE's corporate governance continues to properly enable and support shareholders' rights through SEC filings. So everyone's reading this and like, okay, this is already nuts. And everything sort of comes to fruition the next day, Friday morning, January 6th. WWE publishes a filing making it clear that Vince McMahon is back on the company's board of directors. The new filing states, and a lot of this timeline here from this point on, I've pulled off of WrestleNomics, Brandon Thurston. Week after week, I feel like sometimes I turn into an infomercial for Brandon and the work that he does over at WrestleNomics with the rest of the team. But look, if you want to follow this bit by bit and get some astute analysis on the business aspect of it, Brandon's your guy. You know, I'm sort of I'm trying to wrap everything up here with a bow and try to make it as clear as possible as well. So McMahon makes it clear in the filing that he published, that he talked about in his press release, that he's back on the board of directors. The new filing states that effective immediately, Vince puts himself, Michelle Wilson, and George Barrios on the board and removes independent directors Alan Wexler of Publicis Sapient and Joellen Lyons-Dillon from Vitaris, as well as Jeffrey Speed of Six Flags. They're all gone. Hit the bricks. The filing shows that Vince making changes to WWE's bylaws, so media rights and deals and any company sales cannot be made without his approval. So that's what he was talking about, you know, in his press release when he was saying, you know, that certain amendments would be made to the company's bylaws to ensure that the WWE's corporate governance continues to properly enable and support shareholders' rights. Well, since the only person who can support shareholders' rights is Vince McMahon, according to Vince McMahon, of course, we're moving into a situation here where the bylaws are going to make sure that Vince McMahon is the guy who can the only guy who can dot the T's and scratch the T's. What is it? Dot the I's and slash the T's on whatever deal happens, right? And what's really interesting here in this filing is that they added the letters that Vince talked about in his press release, but we hadn't seen about it. So there were communications that happened that we were not privy to, but they were added in these filings. And this is where the shit gets juicy. Really, really interesting. And it's carrying over right up until today, the day that we're recording this, which is January 10. The first letter that's included here is dated on December 20th, 2022, where Vince tells the board that he wants to come back as executive chairman and participate in a possible merger or acquisition of the company, coinciding with the timing of what would be WWE's media rights renewal negotiations. He also reassures the board that he's supportive of current executives Stephanie McMahon, Nick Khan, and Paul Levesque, Triple H. The second letter is the response of the board, which is interesting to say the least. This one was dated a week later, December 27. They tell Vince that they've unanimously agreed that he should not come back to the company. We must not forget that board members of WWE include co-CEOs Stephanie McMahon, Nick Khan, and Chief Content Officer Paul Levesque. Just hang on to that nugget of information. It's very interesting. So if we have a unanimous if we have a board of directors who is unanimous in signing a letter saying, Vince, we don't want you back, that means Nick, Steph, and Trips all agreed to that specific amendment. Let's keep moving on. The reasons for not wanting him back include, and I quote, non-public information the board has become aware of and the risks to the company and its shareholders of placing a greater spotlight on these issues. Do we all get what's being said here? The board is basically saying that they don't want him back for a few reasons, including the fact that there is information that the board has that has not been made public yet, and the fact that Vince would come back would put a spotlight probably on this non-public information, basically saying this information is going to come public, Vince, if you start poking your nose back in here. So what did the directors do in this letter? They asked him, they had some actionable points for him. They wanted him to do the following. They wanted him to sign a letter agreeing that he won't come back to the company and that he will pay for the cost of the company's investigations into the allegations of sexual misconduct, made against him and former executive John Laurinaitis. In exchange, the directors will agree not to sue him for those expenses against the wishes of a shareholder demand letter. So what happens after that? We get a third letter, which is, of course, Vince's final retort, saying he's he's unsatisfied with the director's response and that he won't agree to any company sale or media rights deals unless he's involved as executive chairman. So again, anyone who's reading this and anyone who reads all of this, and their interpretation is Vince is holding his company hostage? Yeah, that sounds correct to me. And he continues to hammer home in this letter that he will bring maximum value to the shareholders. We're still on January 6th here. We're still on the Friday. WWE shares opened at about $80 on Friday and quickly reached a new 52-week high, up 11% from the previous day's close price. WWE later that day issued a press release confirming Vince's return to the board as well as the appointments of Wilson and Barrios. Quote, "Today we announced that the founder of WWE, Vince McMahon, will be returning to the board," said Chairman and co-CEO Stephanie McMahon, co-CEO Nick Khan, and Chief Content Officer Paul Levesque. I think this is funny. In my shoot job, I write press releases. This is part of what I do. And you put in these boilerplate quotes quite often. But to think that, Stephanie McMahon said this and and Nick Khan and Triple H, they all said the same thing together. It's just funny to imagine all three of them like in a room saying it all at once, Anyway, this is the kind of shit that goes through my head. We also welcome back Michelle Wilson and George Barrios to our board of directors. Together, we look forward to exploring all, say it with me now, strategic alternatives to maximize shareholder value. Hey, Bob, Culture Podcast. Nice to see you. Yes, very good to see you. Very slow news day. This is what we're making time here. We're filling time with this Vince McMahon stuff. So, thank you for being here. So essentially, this is the thing, right? This is what we have all set up so far as everything that Vince announced via his press releases are happening. Now, in this very same release that WWE put out, they announced that Jit Singh and Njpw were leaving the board immediately. Singh had been with Sony Pictures Home Entertainment and Lahoud at Majid Al Futtaim, which is a mall, online, an online store basically, and both were independent directors of the board, and Singh specifically was in charge of the independent investigation into McMahon and Laurinaitis' alleged misconduct. So isn't that interesting? Getting rid of people who were aligned against him while meanwhile bringing in Barrios and Wilson. Ain't that interesting? Now, even later in the day, we're still on Friday. It's still January 6th. It's the McMahon insurrection ongoing. Stephanie McMahon, Nick Khan, and Frank Riddick held a conference call for all staff employees, reassuring them that everything is fine, nothing is changing in day-to-day operations. They talked strategic alternatives again, where they brought up the idea of even going private. Again, just taking the company away from being publicly traded and going private again. And by all accounts, we read the transcripts. It was very rah-rah. Hang in there, thank you for being here. Everything's exciting, everything's great. It's a morale booster is what they did. Meanwhile, WWE's share price closed at $84, which was up 17% in one day. Market capitalization at about $6.5 billion. Which brings us to today. Let's start digging into this a little bit. And I mentioned it before, but it bears repeating. If anyone didn't believe that this was a way for Vince McMahon to get back into the company, I don't know what to tell you. Okay? I don't know what to tell you. And I wrote here in my notes, it may be the case, or it may not be the case, right? But just as I was getting ready to set things off here, Stephanie McMahon she tweets out a message that she sent She basically sent out on Twitter. Let me read it to you. Dear WWE Universe, about 8 months ago, I took a leave of absence and within a few weeks unexpectedly had the opportunity of a lifetime. Become WWE champion. No, I'm kidding. I had the privilege to return as the co-CEO and chairwoman of the board of WWE. I cannot put into words how proud I am to have led what I consider to be the greatest company in the world, working alongside a remarkable leadership team and one of the strongest executives I have known in my co-CEO, Nick Khan. Our founder, Vince McMahon, has returned as executive chair and is leading an exciting process regarding strategic alternatives. And with Nick's leadership and Paul Triple H Levesque as Chief Content Officer, I am confident WWE is in the perfect place to continue to provide unparalleled creative content and drive maximum value for shareholders. You got to get those buzzwords in. WWE is in such a strong position that I have decided to return to my leave and take it one step further with my official resignation. You heard that right. Stephanie McMahon is no longer co-CEO and chairwoman of the board. I look forward to cheering on WWE from the other side of the business where I started when I was a little kid as a pure fan. I will always remain dedicated to WWE. I truly love our company, our employees, our superstars, and our fans. I am grateful to all of our partners. And I'm grateful to all of our partners. Thank you for everything. Then, now, forever together. Well, isn't that a twist? Now, that was something that no one expected. Well, not this soon anyway. Really not this soon. But this is where we're at right now. So this is what Vince did. He essentially made this happen. I hope you all understand. I hope it's clear at this point, because last week all the wording and all the positioning and everything that he was doing was leading to him regaining control. If it wasn't clear at that point last week, it is really clear at this point. Where Stephanie is like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to return to my leave. And you know what that kind of wording, you know what that underscores? I'm going to return to my leave. And not only that, resign. I'm returning to my leave. You know what that means? You know what that underscores, I should say? Sort of gives you the impression that she was keeping Vince's place warm. That she really wasn't there for anything permanent. Or at least that's what they're telling her to say. It's like, no, just say you're going back to your leave. It's very, very fishy. It's very, very fishy. I'm going to take a minute here to say hello to Kristen Ashley, the first lady of the Mr. MrWarrenHayes show. Yeah. Hello, Kristen, member of the MrWarrenHayes show channel on top of that. So when he was talking about his confidence in management, I'm confident in Stephanie. I'm confident in Nick and in Paul. A lot of us, anyone who's been familiar with Vince McMahon over the past few years knows exactly what kind of guy he is, and you're like, this is probably just window dressing. This is probably just a lot of bullshit, so as to not scare the shareholders, which is a fine strategy. Don't get me wrong. But it was really just a matter of time at this point before this kind of stuff happened. I did not expect any kind of moves like this so quickly, but Vince got bumped. Stephanie got bumped because Vince is back as executive chair of the board. And he wants to be a part of this. He wants to have his 2 feet deeply ingrained, digging into the situation here, continuing to push forward this company that he built. He doesn't want to let it go. Because he legitimately could sit back and relax. He could just kick his heels up and wait for the proposals, because regardless, as we mentioned as we were talking about the press release, they can't sign any deal without the shareholders approving, and Vince is the majority owner. So there's no way a single deal would go through without him signing it. So he really could have just done, okay, let's sell it to, Amazon, whatever, signature, we're gone, let's go, But no, he wants to be a part of this. And I think that the fact that Stephanie's gone should reinforce that he is muscling his way back into a day-to-day position with the company. Nick Khan is still CEO. Nick is still there. And if I'm not mistaken, Nick is with the company till 2025, if I remember his contract status correctly. And there's no guarantee Nick Khan's going to stick around after this. There's no guarantee. He's a very sought after individual in the entertainment sphere, sports sphere. I'm sure there's going to be tons of people lobbying for his services. Michael Garcia, nice to see you and welcome to the chat. I keep hearing about how the SEC could keep Vince from coming back, right? Because that was something that the shareholders did allude to in their letter to Vince, that there were federal investigations going on right now. So without knowing exactly what's going on, it was highly alluded to that there were things going on and that Vince shouldn't come back while this is going on. And people are like, no, well, that's going to keep Vince from coming back. What are you talking about? I'm like, do you people know Vince McMahon? Everything that Vince is doing so far is the most in-character stuff for him. Him being pushed out of the company and him putting out a tweet saying, I have to retire, it's about time, 77 years old. That was completely the opposite of the Vince McMahon we have grown to know. But everything he's doing right now, even through threats of being sued, taken to court by the federal government, he's not afraid of that. He's been taken to court by the government before, and he's won. Everything that Vince has ever done, everything he's ever touched, every problem he's ever been in, he's squeezed out of it. He's weaseled out of it every single time. So what he's doing right now, pushing to come back because it's like, look, I want back in. There's no shock here. Now, of course, he's on the board of directors, right? The board is not involved in the day-to-day as the executives are. That's what the executives are for. And the executives answer to the board of directors who appoint the executives, right? So, of course, everyone was having a field day with this last week. Everyone was cutting jokes, and myself, and memes, and so on and so forth, talking about how Vince was, how great of a run Triple H has had at creative, and so on and so forth. And then you got people stomping their feet and say, he's not going to return to creative. He's not going to. And I have trouble believing that Vince McMahon would want back in his company and not return back to the spot where he was. I can't wrap my head around it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that he would just come back to cash in. There's got what's in it for Vince. And I think what's in it for Vince is regaining control. Because don't forget, in the rumor from the December 13 report from the Wall Street Journal, the rumor that they had picked up on, the report that they had, said that Vince felt that he wanted to come back because he felt that he had gotten some bad advice. So if Vince feels like he got some bad advice, he's going to come back with a vengeance to strike back at those who provided this bad advice. And I think Stephanie is the first head to roll here. Don't forget, Stephanie McMahon was a member of the board of directors. In fact, it doesn't say that she's gone from the board, right? She says that she, no, she is, she is resigning. She's gone. So she's the first head to roll, essentially, in this situation. Because let's not forget, she was on this board of directors who said unanimously, Vince, we don't want you back. Who's left? Nick and Trips. And I'm pretty sure both of them are sweating bullets right now. Now, Vince might not return to a role in day-to-day operations or creative, right? He might not. What I'm saying is it would be shocking if he didn't at this point here, at this conjuncture, and especially after this, the resignation of Steph McMahon today, it would be shocking if he didn't make another play for it. I know, Sean Fightful last week tweeted out, the creative process is not supposed to change with Vince McMahon back in the company. That's the statement that he received after reaching out to WWE. They told him that. The creative process is not supposed to change with Vince McMahon back in the company. Now, a lot of people are saying, lifting their hands and look, WWE said it. The creative process is not supposed to change. Vince is not going to get involved. I want to underscore the word supposed, not supposed to change. It's not supposed to change with Vince's back. And that's all the wiggle room you need. And that's probably exactly how it was worded to Sean too. Not supposed to change. They're not saying Vince will not will not return as head of creative. He said, the statement says, not supposed to change. And that's critical. Words are important, people. Because if we're being honest, right? Despite the fact that I'm sitting here and I'm seeing, I'm like that dude, with the cork board and the yarn and the push pins. I'm connecting all sorts of stuff in my head, and I'm seeing a path open up where Vince comes back as CEO, president, head of creative of the company. I'm seeing it. But there's nothing clear, nothing absolutely crystal clear right now that is keeping him from resuming a place or not resuming a place of power within the executive branch of the company. Brick Bat, nice to see you. Welcome. Good to see you again. He said, and don't forget, who's the majority, the majority shareholder of the company? It's Vince McMahon. He voted himself back into a leadership position on the board. He's the executive chairman of the board. Who appoints executives to the company, folks? Who appoints executives to the company? It's the board of directors. So don't be daft here. Don't be naive. I'm not saying that he will absolutely do it, but I am saying don't be silly and don't think that there's a bunch of safeguards in place that will keep him away from putting himself back into this position. Vince has fought off scandals, lawsuits, cover-ups, and now he's fighting his board of directors. They're gearing up for some lawsuits right now, which admittedly, it's finance law, which is completely out of my scope. Just another solar system as far as my comprehension of this. But they are warming up to this. The shareholders are getting some lawsuits together. So he's ready to fight his own board. And listen, keep this in mind. I can't stress this enough. The board unanimously told Vince not to come back. And he's back. They're ready to fight. Because they probably know what's up. They know what's coming up next. You have to be extremely skeptical that Vince isn't doing this to chip at the things that are keeping him away. He brought back Barrios and Wilson, which is not a mistake, right? In case you weren't around or you didn't know, Michelle Wilson and George Barrios were the architects of the WWE network back in the day, a few years ago. And they brought it to where it went, created it all, and they were, by all accounts, from everything I understand, from everything I've been told and what I read, they were very well liked by the investment community. They'd reach out, they'd be very open, they'd do conferences and shit like that, and they were very, very well liked. They also, and it was also under their reign as co-presidents of WWE that WWE shares hit an all-time high. So on one end, Vince brings both of those people in to secure the shareholders, to be like, look, I'm not coming in guns a-blazing here. I'm telling you, I'm coming here to maximize value, right? Don't forget, I'm here to maximize value for shareholders. And what better way to maximize shareholder value is by bringing back two of the architects of the best period for investors in WWE, Michelle and George. I'm going to bring those two people back. But then there's also the fact that, yes, they're independents. Like, they don't work for WWE, and they're independents, strictly speaking, on the board. But you can rest assured that they're there to watch out for Vince's interests, because Vince probably doesn't feel like Trips and Nick and Steph don't have his best interests out. since they don't have his best interests for him because they unanimously rejected him returning. Let's not forget that. This is important. This is important moving forward. This is why we should not be surprised by any moves that Vince continues to do moving forward in regards to Nick Khan and in regards to Triple H. Vince was wronged. Look, whatever you want to call it, he got played. There was a coup. He was backstabbed. I don't know, we don't know the exact story, but he's coming back for blood. Heads are going to keep rolling here. And why is this all happening so fast? This is also a question that we can be wondering, that we can be asking ourselves right now. WWE wants to sell before the rights deals. Why? Because it's not wise for your company to be out there. It's not wise for your company to be out there looking to renegotiate TV deals when you are up for sale, because maybe a potential licensor, someone who will buy a license, maybe that potential partner would be less inclined to work with you, knowing that you have suddenly been purchased by by one of their strongest and fiercest competitors, or someone that you just don't like, or maybe bought by their own network. It's like there's so many things at play here. So that's why Vince says we have a very closed window. This is what he was saying in his press release. We have a very short window of opportunity, I should say, to get the deal done, to get the sale done, so that we can move on to the TV rights, which will be the biggest television rights deal WWE will ever negotiate in its history. This is still the case. So they don't want to, as I think they say in the business, they don't want to fuck this up. And when Vince talks about a small window of opportunity, he refers to the fact that, well, at least as historically speaking, WWE renews its rights deals in the spring. It's coming up in May, June, April, post WrestleMania anyway. So if he's involved as the majority shareholder, he will ensure that he'll approve the sale. He won't block it. There won't be shenanigans, as I was telling before. And this is all the more clear now that this is the direction that he wants to take. He just, before moving on to the rights deal, he wants to secure the company sale, the sale of the company. Now, the question that's on everyone's mind, that everyone is talking about up and down and right and left. So who will buy WWE? Or what are the options that are open to him, right? The strategic alternatives that exist, right? Because there's multiple ways to look at it. And of course, the first part is, the first possibility is the sale, right? And there's been a lot of speculation. There's been a lot of people from outside the wrestling sphere, thank God, who are weighing in on this, instead of just like, wrestling brain site.biz, checking in and saying, well, I think Comcast, because they have a Monday Night Raw already. It's like, that's not, it's not how it works. Pluggo, nice to see you. Welcome to the chat. Lucas Shaw from Bloomberg had a bit of a wrap up here of the, he went over the various possibilities that he feels as an analyst are open to the sale of WWE. He feels Comcast is probably the most logical shoe-in. His analysis goes like this, quote, The owner of NBC Universal is already paying almost $500 million a year for rights to show the WWE on TV and Peacock, a figure that will only increase in the next deal, if they keep it, of course. So he basically questions, like, do you want to pay $600 million a year, or, spend 7-8 billion and just buy the whole damn thing? He's not wrong. Then there's Endeavor, of course, the company that is also owner of UFC. He says WWE could find a lot of cost savings. He says Endeavor could find a lot of cost savings and also create special fight night weekends all around the country. It's also proven it can absorb a contact sports league with a difficult founder. We're talking about Dana White here. And I think this is crucial, because the one thing that we haven't touched on yet is I mentioned it earlier, and I don't know if y'all had time to think about this, but what does Vince want out of all of this? What's in it for Vince? Because clearly he's not just satisfied about cashing in his Class B shares and making a shitload of money. He's a difficult owner too. I don't know if you guys and gals, non-binary pals, know this. Get back to that in a second. Fox is another possible suitor. Like Comcast, it already pays for rights. Unlike Comcast, it's much smaller and doesn't have its own paid streaming service. It has a free one, but not paid. Disney Netflix, he says a global entertainment brand that, Disney or Netflix, a global entertainment brand that either one could also utilize for scripted series and movies. Fits into the respective MOs, but also comes with some serious headaches. He also mentions tech companies, Amazon, Google, Apple are all showing a new willingness to spend on live events and content. Staging wrestling shows around the country, though, might be a little outside their wheelhouse. But I think what Lucas Shaw fails to grasp here is that it is entirely in WWE's wheelhouse. WWE has all the expertise to put on live shows, all within the company. So it's not necessarily something that the purchaser has to supply to the purchasee. This is an expertise that comes with WWE. So personally speaking, of course, I feel like while Amazon, Amazon is always the front runner in these types of discussions because of their valuation and what they're ready to do, and they've been dipping their toes in live streaming with live sports streaming with the NFL that has proven to be successful for them. So they'll probably want to do a little more of that. The idea here with Amazon itself is that, does WWE want to be on a streaming service? Is that what it wants? Does it want to be exclusively on a streaming service? My answer is no, it doesn't. Because the prestige of being on network, on Fox, was a big deal for them and is a good sustained ratings getter for Fox on Friday nights. So I don't know. I'm not convinced about Amazon. And then there's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is entirely possible to be that might absolutely do that. The private investment fund of the kingdom, they own they buy up quite a few properties and whatnot across the globe, and they own a golf league. And as you all know, of course, they pay $100 million a year to WWE to put on 2 shows on their soil per year. So again, this might be a circumstance of, well, why don't we just buy the whole thing? Because on top of that, Saudi Arabia wants to get more involved in the sports sector and in the entertainment sector as part of their ongoing whitewashing campaigns as well. So this might just be a very, very, very natural fit. I know in the past, Vince has had, I think he's had some issues with the Crown Prince, but I also think money talks. And here's the one thing that is very crucial here that I think Saudi Arabia can provide. Can provide, I think, what Vince wants. And what Vince wants is protections for himself upon a sale. And it's something that Endeavor has done to Dana White. Problematic as he is, they negotiated the UFC sale with Dana White remaining in control, remaining in the top spot. I would not be surprised in the least that any negotiations that happen moving forward, Vince McMahon wants Dana White-esque protections. I want to be in control. I want to be the boss. I want to be president, CEO, whatever. I want to be head of creative. And I think this is where Vince McMahon's hand ultimately lies. That's what he's holding up against his chest right now, because he played so many cards right now. He's only got a few cards in his hand left, which is what is the end game for Vince. And just selling his company and just providing value for shareholders, that's not enough for Vince. That's not significant enough for Vince. There's something here that he wants out of all of this. And I think he wants to come back to WWE. He wants to be the boss again. He wants to be in charge of creative again. He wants to be in day-to-day operations again. He wants to run things his way, because that is how it's always happened. And probably the dream of him, disappearing passing away at gorilla position will probably will return to being a possibility. Let's put it that way, because that's what he wants. He doesn't want to give this up. This is a guy who's only lived to work. He's never taken a day off. He doesn't take vacations. He's estranged most of his family because of it. Now he's tossing them aside like used rags. I think it is highly possible that this is the kind of thing that he wants. This is what he wants moving forward for the company. I think that, at some point I was thinking, you know what? The shareholder meeting of WWE is in May typically. And that's usually when, they vote in new members of the board. They can do that anytime, but that's where the board appoints new members of the executive branch. So the executives of the company. I would not be surprised in the very least, that we get to that point and Vince is like, well, look, we're about to sell the company, and for it to move forward, I have to be CEO. I have to be president of the company. So I'm appointing myself. So the board appoints me, not appointing myself. The board appoints me as CEO of the company so that we can sell to Endeavor or whoever else. I'm convinced that's the thing. And as much as it might be a deterrent, because I think Vince at the same time is a liability. As long as there's scandals, as long as there's investigations ongoing, as long as the shareholders outright don't express their faith in Vince like this, and there were letters put out to officialize this, that they didn't want him back, it can be a liability to a sale. You could have partners potentially going, hey, you know what? We might not be comfortable with this. You might have advertisers, sponsors popping up, going, Stephanie McMahon said that she had attested during a conference call that during the summer when the Vince allegations came out, there was, as she called, there was a pause on new advertising opportunities with the company because the Vince thing was a little embarrassing. So this is what I think the end game is. Vince sells the company. Next thing you know, he's got all these protections in place to make sure that he stays in charge. And WWE moves forward with Vince at the helm as God intended. I don't know. But that's the first option, which is a sale. But there is a second option that exists as well for Vince. The second option is that he doesn't sell and takes the whole company private, which is entirely possible. Now, again, this is a level of finance, of economics, that I am not entirely familiar with, but there is precedent for companies to do that. It's a complicated process. You have to cash out to all the investors, but there's a very fair chance that Vince is just so fed up of everyone just in his ear telling Vince, you can do this, Vince, you can't do that. And it's like, look, I'm going to do things my way. I've always done things my way. Here we go again. And he just shuts everything down, and WWE turns back into the frat house it was in the 90s and most of the 2000s as well. I think that's entirely possible as well. And then what did he do? He puts himself back in power, and people just have to answer to him. It's just as simple as that. I think all of this is fantastic. Whichever option ends up, whether he sells to who, it's a whole other story, or if he doesn't sell, I believe and this is my gut feeling, this is after years of watching and observing and absorbing Vince McMahon behavior, I believe that the end game is for Vince to return to power to WWE. What's in it for him? That's what you have to be asking yourselves. And Steph is a casualty right now. Steph is the first of a few executive heads to roll. Look, they already got rid of 5 members of the board of directors, right? And there has to be independent members on the board of directors. And I don't want to step out of turn here because I'm not entrenched in legalese and high finance operations, but I feel like there's regulation that exists on the New York Stock Exchange for a company to be public, that your board of directors cannot be a majority. You can't have uniquely only people who work for the company on your board. You have to have independents, people who are not employed, salaried by the company, who don't receive like a paycheck from the company. You have to have independents on the board as well. And now they got rid of 5 of them, including the guy who was managing the internal investigation on Vince. He brings in Barrios and Wilson, who as independents, but come on now. Come on now. Oh, but Warren, they got fired. Look, Vince wouldn't be bringing them back if he didn't have some assurances, if he didn't have some pledge of loyalty. It's not a mistake. And now there's 1 member of the board from WWE who's gone. There's 2 more. 2 more, again, like I said, who were part of this were part of this letter, who co-signed this letter from the board, unanimously saying, Vince, we don't want you back. Nick and Trips. And Nick is making calls right now. Nick is calling his contact and saying, do you guys have anything for me? Here I come. I want to go back to the Observer from last week. Well, this week's Observer, right? Or the latest Observer. I should say the latest edition of the Observer. Of course, this was lost in all the Vince McMahon stuff, and even today. But again, it's just a palate cleanser. It's not necessarily a full-blown like topic upon which I can talk about for 25 minutes. I probably could, knowing me. But it's not the point here. Just a transition out. And something that I think we just need to put in our brains as wrestling connoisseurs moving forward here. This is something that we have to keep in mind because I found it was significant enough, but no one's talking about it because of the Vince stuff. I'm going to read verbatim from Dave's Observer, thus including as well some fantastic Dave Meltzer sentence structure. Things have heated up regarding the Dax Harwood podcast and CM Punk seemingly pushing that he wants to come back and do business. Punk posted on Instagram a photo of him with FTR, as well as pushing his number 2 in merch sales and a list of the most watched YouTube videos from AEW in 2022, of which he was in many of them, including the top 2. The unique part of this story is that dissension would likely be a benefit to Punk, as would falling business numbers, because Punk's value would be the idea that he could get the numbers back up during what could be a contract year. In theory, he should be okay by April or May after his triceps surgery. That would also be around the time FTR's contract expires. Where there is smoke, there is a fire, usually. Unless you're vaping, then there's just like weird electronic stuff. But I find it interesting that this is a narrative that has started popping up a little, just a little sprinkle here, a little sprinkle there, where CM Punk wants to come back. CM Punk's like, you know what, maybe we should sit down and do some business. And what have I been saying practically from the get-go? And I think a lot of fans feel the same way. All of these men, all of these 4 men, the elite CM Punk, they need to grow the hell up, sit down, talk terms, and return to the and have CM Punk return to the company and just make tons of money together. Why? Because it's good for the wrestling business to have a healthy alternative to a market leader. Why? Because fans get to choose, get to watch something else. But as we have seen throughout the year 2022, it is good for talent to have the opportunity to work in one place or another. That is crucial stuff, actually. So, in my opinion, if we're starting to get some simmering here, right? If we're starting to get some, CM Punk would like to come back and do some business, that is probably the best news that we could get, so that we could get out of all this weird nonsense that is 2023 so far, right? This is fantastic news. And if Dave is starting to talk about it, he's like, you know what, this and that. Well, I'm really thinking that there legitimately might be something to this, excuse me. This is crucial. Because, yeah, there has been a dip in ratings since Punk went back. Pay-per-views are doing well. They're doing great shows. Live attendance is a little down. That's something. CM Punk would remedy that. Motown Slim, thank you very much for your membership of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel. Welcome. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Makes me happy. And he's not wrong in saying, look, in the meantime, because we're all talking about WWE's deal is coming up, but so is AEW's. And AEW is in a very different negotiation position than it was than before Warner Discovery Bros bought the thing, took over, because everyone that Tony Khan knew at TNT for the deals at Warner, they're all gone. So yes, he's been telling us, I get along great with these people here, great relationships, so on and so forth, and I believe it. And you know what? AEW is going to get a raise. They're going to renegotiate their deal, and it's going to be for more money, and it's going to be great. And there's nothing on the AEW scoreboard to indicate that this is a disaster and Warner Bros, Discover Bros shouldn't reinvest in them. That's nonsense. But he brings back CM Punk, who was the top star, was the top draw, was the guy who pushed merch and ticket sales and whatnot, filled out the United Center without even being announced for the show, without being on the marquee, on the simple premise that maybe he'd be there. The United Center filled up to see him return to pro wrestling. If all of these egos can just calm themselves down, relax for a second, sit down and talk it out, I am convinced that this will only be good stuff for AEW. And you know what? Here's the thing. We're going to talk about the biggest match available in North America right now. Okay? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But if all of this works out, I would argue that then AEW has at its disposition the biggest wrestling match that they could put on, that any promotion can put on in North America right now, which would be Kenny Omega versus CM Punk. And I tweeted this out. If they can make this work, the Elite versus CM Punk and FTR has to be a thing. That prints money. And they can drag that out into tag matches, trios, singles. They can do the whole 9 yards. There's so much they can do with that. I mean, y'all are smart. Like I keep saying, I'm the D-list podcast, but you're the A+ audience. Y'all understand this. I'm talking about these matchups, these possible ramifications, and you're all like, yeah, Warren, of course. It's a ratings machine. It's a pay-per-view seller. It's a ticket mover. The Elite and CM Punk and FTR. What are we talking about? These guys really do have to be able to sit down and brush away whatever the fuck was going on and move on. And this includes CM Punk and Adam Page, because that is fucking nonsense, because that's another big match you can put on. So I'm pointing this out because I think it's significant. It's a significant report, and that we have to keep our eyes on. And I'm going to keep following this closely because I really feel like this is the most interesting part of it all. I really do. Wrestle Kingdom 17 is a show that happened a few days ago. I am excited to talk about this because I thought this was a very good show. I keep saying week after week that I find that for me, AEW Dynamite is my favorite weekly wrestling show. Whereas my favorite wrestling promotion is probably New Japan Pro Wrestling. And it's been a while since I felt like New Japan felt like New Japan. And I think there's a lot of Nuge fans who agree with that statement. I'm not like I don't feel like I'm like I've come up with some miraculous observation here. I think a lot of people feel like New Japan was a little tedious. The pandemic wasn't good for New Japan. on multiple levels. On the show, on the level of the show itself, but also that's not just on the show itself, but the show, sure, but you know, the crowds and everything, and the quality of it. It was a rough time to be a New Japan fan. Let's put it that way. Let's talk about the business of Wrestle Kingdom before we get into it. A successful event, business-wise, overall. 26,000 attendees is what New Japan has officially announced, which is on par with the 2016, 2017 editions of New Japan, but lower than every following year after, including the 2 nights, even on the single nights of the 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom, they still drew bigger, more packed houses than they did this year. Brandon Thurston, again, over at WrestleNomics, evaluates that Wrestle Kingdom 17 probably was a $2 million gate for the company. So that's really good. That's really good. And probably a big sigh of relief for New Japan after a couple of years because of COVID restrictions, which are still ongoing, by the way, in Japan. But you know, due to reduced capacity, venues, and so on and so forth, economically a little rougher. So this was probably a big relief. But part of the big story here was that New Japan said in its announcement on their website on Njpw1972.com, they said 92,409 unique users were watching Wrestle Kingdom 17 live, with 30% braving late nights and early mornings on a weekday to watch the English feed from overseas. So about, look, 30% is what? Of 92, but let's say 30,000 odd watching overseas. We had Chris Samsa over from sportifprowrestling.com, who does a lot of the stats for the English community. He did a little experiment by creating a new account, seeing how that could affect the numbers, because every account that's created on New Japan gives you a number. So it was like, well, is the number like a token? Is it sequential, or is it just like a random token that's given to you? But no, apparently the number of accounts, the numbers that are given to you are in sequence. So through his assessment, not necessarily the most scientific approach, or the most data savvy. No, it's data savvy. It's smart, but maybe not the most accurate representation here. Samsa said that 24,000 new accounts on New Japan World were created within the 12 hours previous to the opening of the show. 12 hours got 24,000 new accounts signed up on World. That would mean more subs than when with the Wrestle Kingdom where Jericho and Omega were on it. More subs generated for Okada Omega. Just fantastic. Of course, the question that we can ask is, are these all paid accounts, right? Because you can create a New Japan account without buying something, without attaching your credit card to it. One would assume that the majority of these accounts convert to a paid account, to a sale, right? You would assume that the majority of these 24,000 accounts that signed up to see Mercedes Moné so paid, converted. You'd assume so. But we got no data to back this up. We'll see what happens down the road. We'll see what happens down the road with our friends when New Japan announces their earnings and whatnot. But we're going to talk about Wrestle Kingdom 17, January 4, Tokyo, Japan, the Tokyo Dome. Let's get into the card. Let's get into the nitty gritty of this card. I'm excited. It's honestly going to feel good to talk about pro wrestling for a bit. We had 3 matches on the pre-show. The first one was an exhibition match, a 3-minute exhibition match where Boltin Oleg took on Ryohei Oiwa. Still have trouble with his first name. They went to a time limit draw on the 3 minutes. This was an introduction, the continued introduction of Boltin Oleg, a Kazakhstani Olympian who's just a huge specimen of a human being that Yuji Nagata took a liking to, sort of took under his wing, brought him to New Japan Brass. New Japan is sort of taking a liking to him as well. I think they want to introduce him a little more, and he's getting into this strategy where New Japan wants more new faces, right? This has been the talk of the past few months since the summer leading into Wrestle Kingdom. That New Japan wants new fresh faces. They want new guys, younger guys to be featured more prominently on television. Well, a guy like Oleg definitely stands out in the crop here. So from the crop, nice little match, was fine. Inoki would have really liked Oleg. He really Oleg is definitely the kind of, built a credible looking foreigner badass that he would have liked to have around his company, maybe even fight on top of that. Second pre-show match was the King of Pro Wrestling title 2023 right to challenge Rambo. Great-O-Khan, Shingo Takagi, Sho, and Toru Yano were the final 4, and they were going to meet in a 4-way match at New Year's Dash the next day to determine the 2023 King of Pro Wrestling. Look, the Rambo is what it is. It's a bit of a mess. It's fine. It is what it is. I'm really glad, though, that they used the Rambo to get the House of Torture out of the way, get all of that nonsense out of the way, and keep them out of my main card matches. That was fantastic. Great decision. Fantastic decision right there. One of the highlights was Kenta power walking to the ring. I thought that was hilarious. Of course, Shingo Takagi was in there, and I'm still stunned that that's really all they had for him. But then you understand why after the show was done. And I mean, Shingo and El Phantasmo, they have great chemistry together. I think they work fantastically with one another, and the little bits that they had in the Rambo was fun. But I mean, look, that's all we really have to say at this point. Except one more time, and I am still flabbergasted that 2 years ago, we were on the cusp of the Sho singles push. Sho broken away from Yo, from Roppongi 3K, and most of us were like, finally, this kid, he's got a future. He's awesome. He's a great worker. He had these great matches with Shingo in the New Japan Cup. He had another one later on in the year as well in 2021, if I'm not mistaken. Only to be completely lost in the shuffle, an afterthought, being part of the cancer that is House of Torture. I mean, there's still time for this guy's career, but I cannot fathom someone who had such brightness about him, and which everyone he was one of the highlights of the very dismal pandemic era for New Japan. And yet, despite how everyone was excited for his future and what he had in store, now he's a House of Torture schlub doing nonsense, and it stinks. The other pre-show match was the Antonio Inoki Memorial match, where Satoshi Kojima, Togi Makabe, and Yuji Nagata defeated the trio of Minoru Suzuki, Tatsumi Fujinami and Tiger Mask. Even had Tiger Hattori in this one to referee. And look, it was all right. It was all right. It was what it was. It's the dads and Minoru Suzuki being thrown in with the dads, which I thought a little weird. Like, after the Suzuki Gun breaking down, it was like, oh, Suzuki's in with the dads now. And I'm like, really? Fun exchanges with Kojima, Suzuki, and Nagata, but the finish was botched. Tiger Mask screwed up on a move that was supposed to end with some kind of clutch pin. Oh well, look, it doesn't matter. Move to the main card. IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Title Match. Champions Catch 22 Francesco Akira and TJP of the United Empire successfully retained their titles by defeating Leo. The duo of Leo Rush and Yo. Fun opener to kick things off. And I'm going to tell you, I haven't been excited for a New Japan junior tag team match for a long time. But the Super Junior Tag League did such a great job putting Catch 22 over like as this pristine tag team, and then at the same time building Leo, Rush, and Yo as contenders. It was just fantastic, and this match was very good. Even started before the bell with Yo doing tope con hilos on Catch 22. Asai moonsault by Leo Rush, assisted X Factor on the ramp by Leo Rush as well. Francesco Akira does a rope walk drop kick on Yo, who gets into the Tree of Woe, who is in the Tree of Woe, I should say. Seated senton off of TJP's shoulders to the floor. Leo Rush gets busted open, something fierce. Like something fierce here. He even has to miss out on he gets busted open so bad that he can't do Battle of Los Angeles. He has to pull out. Suicide dives by Leo Rush. Powerbomb suplex combo off the top rope. Transitions into a neck breaker by Yo. We get a final hour by Leo. The pin attempt is broken up by TJP. We get lots of near falls during the final sequence here. Leaning tower is avoided by a poison rana. Running Spanish fly by Leo Rush, who hits the rush hour as well. Yo hits a direct drive as well. We think everything is all tightly put together. We're getting new champions, but he gets rolled up for the win. It's a great show. Great match. It was a lot of fun. Great little opener here to kick things off. And look, to continue my thoughts on show, if you had told me in 2021, Warren, you're going to get really excited about Yo moving forward. I'm like, no way. No way, but I was excited. I think Yo's looking great in this team. This is a good fit. He and Leo Rush. It works. And Leo Rush, man, motivated. He looks excited to be there. He feels like he's chewing into this opportunity. Good for him. Next match was the IWGP Women's Title match. Historic first women's match on Wrestle Kingdom, singles match on Wrestle Kingdom for the IWGP Women's Title, recently won by Kairi Sane. She successfully, or Kairi Hojo, or just plain old Kairi, right? Warren. Kairi defeats Tam Nakano. Blink, you'll miss this match. Kairi toys with Nakano to start, but Tom goes high speed and basement drop kicks Kairi. Nakano wails on her. Kairi lands an interceptor. Flying top rope forearm. She's playing the hits. Spin kick by Tom Nakano. Tom splatters Kairi with a crossbody to the floor. Then we get a German suplex with the bridge and a Steiner screwdriver by Tom Nakano, which I think everyone popped for. Axe kick. Nakano runs to the back, runs into Kairi's back fist, and another one as well. Kairi lands the insane elbow for the win. Again, like, this match was under 6 minutes. Absolute shame. Absolute complete, total shame. Because I thought this match was starting to cook. I was into it. And it really felt like, oh, what? Already? No, please, no. They were really starting to get warmed up. And I know, look, I heard the arguments and oh, but we're in Japan, the match is not 15 minutes usually. And like, I don't care. Wasn't even half the duration of a typical, it wasn't even half the duration of a full 15-minute draw. Like, what are we doing here? Historical first match. Under 6 minutes? Come on now. Was it to make time for the big event that was supposed to happen after? Really didn't need all that much. And the Foot channel subscribe. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for your subscription. Anyway, it's nonsense. But, of course, the story is after the match. The worst kept secret in pro wrestling, Mercedes Moné arrived. Now, there's been some discourse. Going around about the pronunciation of Moné, okay? Many podcasts have undertaken this. Even Dave has had a crack at it. But here's the thing. This is one thing that I want you to realize, okay? And I'm going to use some good old-fashioned Post-its here, okay? So this is one way that I have seen Mercedes spell her name. M-O-N-E with an accent aigu, or an acute accent on the E, pointing up towards the right, essentially. That says Moné to me, okay? And I've seen this spelled that way a few times. However, on her own Twitter page, she has it spelled like this. M-O-N-E with an accent on the E as well, but an accent, a grave accent. I don't know how you say it. An accent grave, which points off to the left. Okay? Now, the problem between these two here is that the one with this one here, the one that with the accent that points to the left, does not pronounce the same way as the one with the accent pointing to the right. The one with the accent pointing to the left, the accent grave, the sound of that E is an eh, like in the word bet, eh. Whereas with the E and the accent aigu, now it sounds like an A, as in the word say, for instance. Moné. This is how it should be spelled. But she spells it with the incorrect accent, the one pointing off to the left, which would make her name Moné, which in French sounds like the word monnaie, which translated into English means spare change, which I am convinced that's not what she's going for. So I don't mind how she pronounces it. That's not my problem. I don't have an issue with the way she wants to pronounce her name. That's fine, but she has to get her spelling right. And if she's Mercedes Moné, this is how you spell it. Trust me, I speak French. This is how you spell it, not like this, because you pronounce it another way in that circumstance. That's how you do it. It's just as simple as that. Now, I wanted to add my 2 cents into the Moné discourse. Moné, Mercedes Moné, but she shows up. She looks great. She just looks great. She comes to the ring, confronts Kyrie, and she extends a hand. and in the most Sasha Banks / Mercedes Moné way possible, she of course backstabs. You might get her out of the WWE, but you can't get that's who she is. She fucks with people. She's a rudo. She's a heel. She'll stab you in the back. I thought it was great. The segment itself, I don't think was all that great though. You know, I look. There's a lot of we talked about this when I was on the Between Two Beards podcast as well. We talked about it a little bit. We can say, look, she, completely out of her element, in an environment that is not as overly produced as in WWE, maybe left a little to herself. She's probably nervous as hell. We can make up all the excuses we want though. We were not there. We were not Mercedes Moné. We don't know what she was going through. The segment didn't land. I don't think it was great. I thought the promo after was fine. I know a lot of people found that it was terrible, but I was like, you know what? Sasha's promos were never her strong suit. They never were. I don't know why people got all bent out of shape because of her promos. Like, what were you expecting? This is renowned that Sasha is a fine mic worker, but nothing more. But the move didn't connect, and it sucked because clearly she was debuting a new finisher. And I was like, I was like, oh, that sucks. I think it was reported that Kyrie just didn't know she sold it wrong, or she didn't know how to sell it. And Mercedes sort of transitioned into an armbar because she has that instinct, right? I thought that she looked the part. She looked fantastic. She hit the ring, everything right up until the angle. And I'm like, and I saw a lot of people going, what the hell is this? She stands there and yes, because you know what she did there? She did a Japanese angle. This is how things happen. This is where I started to notice how many people were tuning into a New Japan match for the first time and have only watched like one way of doing wrestling for their entire lives, right? Because what Sasha did, what Mercedes did, it's gonna give me a couple of weeks. It'll be out of my mouth by then. But what Mercedes did essentially was a classic post-match angle where the champion is in the ring, the next challenger, music hits, or they hit the ring or whatever, they get into the ring, they point at the belt, and either they shake hands or there's a beat down or there's an angle. Because that's how angles are built in New Japan. We're not going to get weeks of TV promos. We're not going to get wacky angle developments or long-term storytelling here. This is how it works in Japan. This is how we set up the next match in New Japan. It's just as simple as that. So what she did was a classic, to the letter, New Japan angle to set herself up as the next contender for the championship. It's really not that hard. Again, I don't think the segment landed as well as it could, should, would have. Her post-match press conference, I think it was fantastic. I think she looks fantastic. The hair was surprising, a bit of a shock, but a good shock. Like, she's clearly ready to move on. And here's the thing, and I can't stress this enough. There are probably reasons why this sort of went south. And, again, there's a lot of reasons that we can suppose. Oh, well, she wasn't feeling it. She was nervous. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe she was nervous to be in the Tokyo Dome in New Japan and doing this because Sasha Banks is a wrestling nerd. She's one of us. She watches tape. She posted pictures of herself recently watching TNA from 2006. What did she do in Japan? She did her thing. She did her wrestling gimmick, and she went to Ribera to get a coat, to get her jacket. I mean, this is someone who loves pro wrestling. And for the first time since working the indies, she is free to do whatever she wants. And she said it in her comments, like she in her post-match comments, she said she wanted to work. She's going to work Stardom, but she wants to freelance. She was dropping names right and left. She's going to make the most out of this opportunity. So if she does go back to WWE later in the year, and you know what? She might go back. Why not? Why wouldn't she go back to WWE down the line? Would make sense. Why wouldn't she? Let's see what happens from here to let's see what kind of state the company's in a couple of weeks, and we'll revisit these statements. But as a general concept, a general feeling, why not? It doesn't matter. She right now, all she has to do is do whatever she wants to do. She wants the freedom to fight elsewhere. She wants the freedom to do her own thing. And you know what? She brought the business, right? Let's not forget. It is New Japan and Stardom's parent company, Bushiroad, that is footing the bill for her appearances. She's on a per appearance basis, let's not forget. And it is not Stardom footing the bill. It is not New Japan. It is the parent company. That's how bad they wanted her. That is how bad they wanted her around to be able to sell things. Sell new subs to New Japan World. Sell out the show in San Jose in February, which she did. There were about a little over 1,000 tickets left at Wrestle Kingdom. They're all gone now. And there's only one match advertised for the show. Kyrie versus Mercedes Moné. We even got Flaming Shark in the chat here who's going to be there. I'm kind of jealous, but I'm very happy for the Flaming Shark for being there as well. It's going to be great. And that's awesome. Because right then and there, and look, if they're pulling a $2 million gate, if they've got 92,000, almost 93,000, 92,000 unique users watching Wrestle Kingdom live, with 30% being overseas. And she sells out. The first show she's advertised on is a sellout. A sellout, which, by the way, has fairly expensive tickets. $75 for the nosebleeds. Upper deck, if you prefer. $75. This is going to be a $250,000 gate for New Japan. The show in San Jose sold out because of Mercedes Moné. She's already proving her worth to the company. In the short term, of course, because this is a short-term deal. But every metric that everyone was latching on to, will she be able to sell out the show? Will she be push subscribers? She did it all. Good for her. Now, of course, we will continue to watch as this develops. Will she be able to continue this type of momentum? She's going to be booked for other shows for New Japan. Will she be able to do this, to have this type of turnover? Will she have that type of turnover in Japan? I don't know how over she is in Japan. And again, this is not something that I'm going to sit here and tell you, well, the Japanese crowd are polite. And, maybe you think there wasn't much noise, but in reality, no. I don't know how over Mercedes Moné / Sasha Banks is in Japan before her appearance. I don't know. Why? Because she's never really worked there. I can't tell you. I can't tell you if the name value of Mercedes Moné in Japan has the same type of impact as it does in North America. I would argue it doesn't. Just like the name value of Kazuchika Okada is not a good example, but you know, I'm trying to think of a similar. Well, look, someone like Shuri. Here you go. Let's go one for one to some extent. Shuri, who has under her reign as champion has had sold out shows for Stardom all throughout 2022. A yearly record for the company. Number 2 biggest promotion in Japan behind New Japan is Stardom under Shuri. I'm pretty sure the name value of Shuri for wrestling fans in Japan is more significant than it is here. So I'm not going to sit here and try to and play that because I don't know. I don't know, and the crowd didn't lead me to believe when she was coming out that there was this huge revelation going on for them. That being said, they were into the angle because they did the oohs and ahs and gasps when she did the attack. They reacted. They reacted just as if they were into it. It was fine. There might be more huge WWE news coming tonight. Folks, we will stay with this story. We will stay on the air. Tony Khan has told us we can stay on the air until the end of this match. Anyway, I believe right now New Japan is thrilled with their investment, or at least the home office's investment in Mercedes Moné. It is paying dividends right now. It is paying dividends right now. So let's just see how things go moving forward. We'll see how sustained this is, what her trajectory is going to be. Keep an eye out for stuff. IWGP Tag Team title match. Bishamon defeated FTR to become the new IWGP Tag Team title champions. Right? Not title champions, just champions. I thought this was pretty good. I thought it was a solid match. Goto and Harwood slug it out, but Harwood gets double teamed. Brainbuster by Harwood. Wheeler comes in with a dive and they hit the powerplex. FTR double team Hiroki Goto. Goto avoids a big rig, lands an Oshigoroshi on Harwood, headhunter by Yoshihashi. The FTR boys hit the big rig, but it's broken up. They do the suplex topple spot to the floor. Dax tries to pile drive Hiroki Goto, who back body drops him. Get a headbutt and a suplex by Goto. Pile driver on Yoshihashi. Spike pile driver by FTR. We get some back and forth, but we get Shoto for the win. Bishamon retain. If we go back a few weeks, I said that the World Tag League should end with Aussie Open getting the win, and we get Aussie Open versus FTR2 at Wrestle Kingdom. That should be the finish. But I also brought up the point that we already have a Gaijin on Gaijin match, championship match later on. If I am Gedo, excuse me, am I booking another championship match with only Gaijin involved? And turned out that my gut instinct on that was right. I don't think this was not the match I wanted. I thought it was solid. I thought it was well worked. It was pretty good, actually. Definitely not one of FTR's best. It was pretty good. But we're back to a degree, back to start with Bishamon being the tag title, the tag champions again. Hiroki Goto, Yoshihashi. We'll talk about it again with New Year's Dash, but when it ended, I was like, well, all right. I mean, FTR was clearly going to lose it. That's their thing going on right now, is that they're on a losing streak there. They've lost they've lost their smile, but they've lost the spark, right? They're losing right and left. They dropped all their titles. There's rumors that their contract is coming up in April. Are they leaving the territory and putting the guys over as they're leaving the territory? That could be it. I don't know. We'll see how things develop at this point. Dax has said, that FTR are going to take a break from TV wrestling and work the indies for a bit. So, upon which Violence is Forever challenged FTR. And I'm like, okay. An indie run would be fine. Anyway, fun match. Solid match. Well worked. Then we got the inaugural winner of the New Japan World Television title. It was the tournament final match where Zack Sabre Jr. defeated Ren Narita. I thought this was a very good match. Armbar party to start. They transition in and out of stuff until Zack Sabre Jr. twists and stomps the left arm of Ren Narita. Half-hatch suplex and bridge by Narita, which was pretty cool. They trade PKs and boots on each other. Exploder by Narita into a bridge. Sabre kicks Ren Narita over and over, but it riles him up. It gets that fighting spirit burning. Northern Lights suplex by Ren Narita. Zack Sabre Jr. transitions into an armbar, and Jr. is working over his left arm. Narita squeezes out of a Euro clutch. We get a super close near fall. Narita goes for the leg, but Zack Sabre Jr. transitions into an arm lock and instantly gets Ren Narita to tap. First singles title for New Japan in New Japan for Zack Sabre Jr. Congratulations to him. I have to point it out. I have to, despite how happy I am that we did get that. As happy as I am, that Zack Sabre Jr. did get his title, I'm a little confused because this title was introduced clearly by the top brass of New Japan as being the title that they were going to was going to be the title that they were going to use to elevate new young talent, put them in fresh new positions and get some new guys over, right? Don't forget the TV title for New Japan is going to be available for free everywhere on their socials, on New Japan World, everywhere. So even this match right now, you can watch it for free. And their idea behind this whole rejuvenation period that they want to go through, I thought they were going to give it to Narita here because Zack is, he's not the youngest guy. He's not super old. He's definitely not one of the oldest, but he's not one of the youngest either. He's not a young talent by any stretch of the imagination, but they put it on him. Look, I mean, you could do worse. Zack Sabre Jr. is a fantastic guy, and he's going to make the title feel important. It's going to look like $1 million. Like out the gate, if you want your title to have some kind of prestige, well, you put it on a name, right? So I get it. It's fine. It's just so completely opposite to what we were told the TV title was going to be for. You know what I mean? That makes sense. But still, hey, second Wrestle Kingdom main card appearance in a row for Ren Narita here. Let's go for 3. That can't be overlooked. But a strong match. I thought this was very good. And then after the match, you have Shane Haston Mad Mikey Nichols, who is slowly transforming into Roderick Strong. And I don't care. This is all I see when I look at Mikey Nichols now. He's transforming into Roderick Strong. It's ridiculous. Both of these guys come to the ring with their TMDK shirts, and they toss one over to Zach. Said, "Come join us. Bronson Reed is gone. Jonah is gone. He is now Bronson Reed. We're not, we don't know what happened to Bad Dude Tito. Hopefully he was not lost in the divorce. Could you please join our group?" That's not what they said. I'm just making shit up. But Zack Sabre Jr. is now not only a member of TMDK, he joined them. Not only a member, he's the head guy, the face of TMDK. He's the leader, he's the boss, he's the man, he's the dude. So Suzuki-gun breaking apart, and after years of speculation where everyone's like, well, when Suzuki retires, it's going to become Sabre-gun, right? No. Zack Sabre Jr. is hanging out with his two Aussie buddies, which, they do have a legitimate relationship with each other that has spanned for years. And they're both gonna, all three of them are gonna be like the frat bros. Like, if you ever wanted to find a unit in New Japan that looked like, just a frat house, it's just look at those three. You got Zack Sabre Jr., not Roderick Strong, and Slapjack all together. Anyway, we're not done talking about TMDK, the mighty Don't Kneel. Let's come back to that. So we have a new faction, a new unit in New Japan, TMDK. It's all become officialized now. Never open weight title. Finally, Tama Tonga defeats Carl Anderson. He drops the title. Tama Tonga once again, never open weight champion. I think this was one of the weakest matches of the night. And I don't want to, and it is a match. I don't want to pile on Carl Anderson because I find it's easy. I find it's low hanging fruit and can be misconstrued as me being a WWE hater. Whereas everyone knows I am a casual viewer of WWE, which is exactly the best type of fan to be for WWE. But back to Carl Anderson, I think it's low hanging fruit to go after him. But the thing here is that I really felt this match was off to the races because Anderson beans Tama Tonga before the bell. They fight on the floor. Fisherman Buster up the rail. Burner drivers Tama Tonga on the ramp. And just good stuff. And then they get into the ring and I don't know. I don't know if it's a flow thing. I don't know if Anderson was just like, I don't care. I don't know. I felt it lost a lot of steam when we got into the ring. Tama, though, his explosiveness, that explosive babyface energy that he has is going to carry this babyface run. I can't hammer this home enough. He's just got that. He's got that vibe. He works really well as a babyface. It's been turning out good for him. Flying crossbody by Tama Tonga, an SRC, a Supreme Flow. They try to land gun stuns on each other. We get a second rope gun stun that lands. But then the final one, Carl Anderson just blew it. He didn't sell it. He didn't know how to take it. It was just completely blown. I don't know if it was miscommunication, if that was not the spot, but Anderson completely blew it. And that fucking sucks. And I'm not going to get into conspiracy mode and say, well, what if Carl Anderson just... No. See, because I've seen these things and it's like, well, Carl Anderson just doesn't give a shit. No, Carl Anderson gives a shit about New Japan. He gives a shit about New Japan, and I'll tell you why. If he didn't, he would have just told the Tongans, well, fly over to North America and come get the title. I'll put it in a tote for you so you can bring it back on the plane. He cares about New Japan because Carl knows that that's where his career really took off. And if there was anything that happened to his career again, he could go back to Japan in a second. He has very good relationships with the office there. He's fine. He can go back to New Japan anytime. So he did not want this to finish shittily. He did not want this to end on a sour note. So he didn't do this on purpose. It still sucks that he completely blew the spot. He blew it. Like, there's no other way to say it. He just blew it. Anyway. Neverweight title, Tama Tonga, and oddly enough, no one is talking about the Never title as passionately as they were as when Carl Anderson took it. In that interesting, in that odd. And we get a 6-man tag team match. You know what tag team match this was? Keiji Muto's last New Japan match. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Shota Umino, and Keiji Muto defeated the LIJ crew of Bushi, Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito. This was exactly what I thought it was going to be. So I had no expectations out of it, and it was fine. It was, it was okay. Sanada, I'll tell you, I liked Sanada getting in the ring with Muto, trained and so on and so forth, the moonsault. So, Sanada even going straight for Muto's knees, landing the moonsault. I'm like, this is cool. Muto lands a Shining Wizard, and he teases doing the moonsault. He goes up top and everyone's losing. So he's going to do a moonsault at his final match. Like, he's teased it, right? But he's keeping that one in the chamber because Hiroshi Tanahashi talked him out of it, which I thought it was really fucking weird. Why would Tanahashi, like the babyface, the fan favorite, why would he talk Keiji Muto out of doing a spot that would flip, that would get the crowd up off their feet, kind of thing, right? Why? I don't know. You're asking me questions I can't answer. No, I know you're not answering. But it was a weird spot. Tanahashi talking Muto out of it. Come on now. Because he's old and broken. Like, Tana, come on now. It's... Anyway, this was all right. I think the big, there was a spot where everyone is doing finishers, an STF, a cloverleaf, figure 4 on the LIJ members. But the crowd, I found, was not into this match. Death Rider by Shota Umino to get the pin. And I think this was the most significant and most newsworthy part of the whole thing, that Shota Umino got the pin. And that was the right call, that being said. He should absolutely needed to get the shine here. That's this is the main takeaway. They want Shota to be a big deal. And he's doing the thing. He comes out at New Year's Dash and he's coming in through the audience like he still, he still mocks his son. Even though he's the roughneck. Ugh. Just stick with Shooter. Well, I don't know why they didn't stick with Shooter. Is it difficult to pronounce? Maybe for Japanese natives, maybe. I can't believe roughneck is easier. The GH supposed to be an F sound? Like, come on. Anyway. IWG, anyway, now we're getting into the good stuff. Now we're getting into the core, the top shit of the show. IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship 4-way match. Hiromu Takahashi defeated champion Taiji Ishimori, as well as El Desperado and Master Wato, to become once again Junior Heavyweight Champion. Great opening. See, again, I'm on record, said it multiple times. I am not a big fan of 4-way matches for titles, multi-mans for titles. I don't like them, and I think it's because I've been spent on the way North America does it, particularly WWE, where you'll have 4 ways, but then there'll be like 2 guys who'll disappear. They'll tumble over the top rope, and they'll be gone for 2 minutes while there's only 2 guys in the ring sparring. Here, we have a great opening that mixes between 2 to 3 wrestlers all the time. There's always like 2 to 3 guys in the ring cycling in and out, instead of just having like a couple of sets of singles matches happening. And the logic here on top of that is that Taiji Ishimori, he takes a powder. He goes up the ramp and he's like, you guys fight for a while. I'm going to stay fresh, which is exactly what a Bullet Club champion would do. And Ishimori showed that kind of smarts when they did that tag team match a few months ago at Battle Autumn, right? Wasn't it a Battle Autumn? Which was fantastic, super fun. Can they get along concept that I adored. Double Bulldog by Wato. Ishimori's on the ramp. He arm drags El Desperado. He shoulder breakers Hiromu Takahashi. But then Wato wipes everyone out. Orihara moonsault by Ishimori onto everyone. Double submissions occur. Wato dumps Takahashi to the floor. Despi dives. Topikan Hilo by Wato. Everyone's flying around. Top rope seated senton by Takahashi. Spine buster by El Desperado. Pop-up Liger Bomb by Hiromu. All guys drop dead at some point. It's just attrition. They're pulling out their power moves. High flying. A good juniors war that's going on. Then at some point, Wato just comes in and he starts landing reciamentes everywhere. And I'm like, I had come to grips with the fact that Wato was going to win, because I was coming in here saying, you know what? Wato might come out on top of this one. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But Wato is hitting reciamentes and his covers are getting broken up. Refs get pulled out of the ring, so on and so forth. And he hits the highest high-angle German suplex I have seen all year. And of course, it's the start of the year. But let's say the past 12 months. Just a fantastic German, but Takahashi hits the time bomb 2 for the win. In a very strong match. I enjoyed this immensely. They avoid the tropes. It's just great stuff. Creative. IWGP United States heavyweight title match. Kenny Omega defeated Will Ospreay to become the new IWGP United States champion, but who cares? Who cares about the title? Honestly, it just doesn't matter. The end result of this title match was, Kenny's going to work more New Japan dates. Because outside of that, this was a masterpiece of a wrestling match. And the bar has been set so high for match of the year this year. It is ridiculous. The bar is so incredibly high. Look, I think this is the consensus in chat. I'm pretty sure y'all are agreeing, because you're already going, oh, it was awesome. I think this match exceeded everyone's very lofty expectations. No one came into this match saying, oh, this is going to be good. Everyone came into this match saying, this match is going to be incredible. But I don't think anyone really expected how fucking fantastic this match ended up being. Just an all-timer. And it's not even hyperbole. As you know, I watch a lot of wrestling, and I have watched a lot of wrestling. And I've dropped it a couple of times in 2022, where I've said this is one of the greatest matches I've ever seen. And this is right up there. And it is even in like it is one of the most legendary matches I've ever seen. This, like, I feel privileged to have been alive to see this and watch it. I am thankful that I live in an era where I am capable of watching two tremendous, legendary, Hall of Fame pro wrestlers like Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay perform an extraordinary wrestling match, which combines everything that combines their entire path to where they are today, everything they went through, combining different styles, all the styles that they have melded into their own. It was all showcased in this match. It felt like a love letter to the past 15 years of pro wrestling and how much it's evolved and how much it's changed and how much of a melting pot it is. How you can succeed in different types, different styles of wrestling and still be able to shine on a larger scale. But when you combine and you bring them all together and you create this celebration of pro wrestling, because this is what this was. And with basics. I don't like you, you don't like me. I am the better wrestler. No, I am the better wrestler. Jesus Christ, we're not, we don't have people coming out in shadow, in top hats with shadowy environments week in and week out for the build to this. Just simple, basic pro wrestling tropes bringing us to this. Exquisite. This match starts and you can feel it. These guys don't like each other. Whether it was put on or not, I would say there's a little truth to it. That's just my guess. I'm not trying to say I know things. It's just a guess. But I would assume that Omega, Ospreay, healthy egos, both of them. I'm just, nice guys in their own right. But when it's time to, who gets the top spot, everyone's in competition. But you can feel it. Will Ospreay gets a pescado early on. Kenny Omega shoves Ospreay into the rails. He hits the "you can't escape." Omega is in control, takes off the top turnbuckle, and boy, oh boy, we did not know how much mileage we were going to get out of that top turnbuckle, let me tell you. Ospreay gets booted into the steel. That was just the start of it. He hits a cutter and a huge enziguri, huge super kick on the apron. He jumps off the turnbuckle for a cutter, but no, Kenny holds on to the ropes. We get a table out. Ospreay's on the floor. Kenny lies the table on top of Will Ospreay's back, goes up top, does a double stomp off the apron right through the table. Just right through. Splinters and everything. Did I do? That's right. I'm making sound effects for this match. It deserves it. And then Kenny turns the table around, metal frame pointing upwards, suplexes Ospreay onto the table. Ospreay fights back, hits a sky twister to the floor. So what do we have at this point in this match, folks? What do we have at this point? We have Ospreay going back to his bag of tricks. He said the assassin was going to come back. Well, we got the aerial assassin back. He's doing os cutters, springboard cutters. He's doing sky twisters. He's pulling out the old bag of tricks here. What is Kenny doing? Kenny's brawling. Kenny's like, nah, man, I'm going all Bruiser Brody on this shit. Nos Cutter is blocked into a poison rana. Omega does a V trigger and a leg trap over the knee shoulder breaker. Just great stuff. They're on the top turnbuckle. Kenny Omega is trying to set up for an avalanche dragon suplex. Ospreay avoids it, lands on his feet, hits a spinning kick, and Os Cutter covers. But Omega kicks out. Great shit. He sets Omega up in the corner, cheeky Nando's a few times. Just a couple, punk, 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 right in the chin. They're fighting up on top again. The padless turnbuckle. What does Kenny Omega does? He DDTs Will Ospreay on the top turnbuckle on the exposed steel in a wild spot. Just an absolute wild spot. Ospreay's busted open. Kenny Omega's eye has a legitimate boot print on it. Omega hits the Rise of the Terminator. He sets the table up against the railing on the floor. He grabs Ospreay. What does he do? Starts ramming his head through the table, through the broken table. And every time he rams it through, the table breaks apart a little more. Ospreay, for the rest of this match, is selling like he's dazed, like he's done, like he's entirely fighting on instinct. He does a fantastic job for the rest of this match. Kenny Omega is out for blood in this match. I don't think we've ever seen, and I know this is something that commentators use all the time, but legitimately, I don't think we have ever seen Kenny Omega this violent. And see, he's healing it up the entire way, and he is fantastic at it, but he is violent. In the ring, back in the ring, Ospreay is swinging wildly at Kenny Omega, who lands a Snapdragon because he's like, hey, you're like blind. You don't know what you're doing anymore. You've lost it. And another Snapdragon, V trigger, but Will Ospreay grabs the leg. It doesn't land. Well, Kenny Omega wails on him some more. Hits a Tiger Driver. V trigger, which dumps Ospreay to the floor. Omega crouches himself on the top turnbuckle. Will Ospreay tries to climb, but eats the turnbuckle face first. He's a step behind. V-trigger to the back of the head. One-winged angel attempt. It's blocked by Ospreay. But what does Kenny do? Another V-trigger. But Will Ospreay's not dead yet. More V-triggers. Ospreay psychs up. The crowd gets behind Will Ospreay. They strike at each other. A lariat attempt happens, but Will Ospreay reverses it into a Liger bomb. He hits the Chelsea Green. Back and front hidden blades. Super Os Cutter. Styles Clash by Ospreay. Hidden blade. He tries for a storm trigger into a storm bringer, excuse me. It gets reversed into a V trigger. But he hits a hidden blade. They're dead. They're flat on the mat. Kenny has wrist control. He's holding on to Ospreay. They strike again at each other. Straight jacket German by Omega. Still holds on to the wrists. He's standing right in front of Will. He's holding both of Will's wrists. Will looks right at Kenny, says, fuck you, spits on him. Kamigoye, right in the kisser. Raises him up for the one-winged angel, and he's dead. And I am out of my seat. And I cannot believe what I just watched. And I cannot believe Kenny Omega won. And I was convinced this was an Ospreay in the bag thing because, look, in every preview I've done leading up to this, the story of Will Ospreay right now is that he's good, but he can't beat the big guys. He's not there yet. He can't beat Kazuchika Okada without shenanigans, without fucking around. Now he can't beat Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega just pops back. Hey, remember me? I'm in the big leagues. You're just Will Ospreay. And he can't do that as well. This is shit that's been eating at Will Ospreay for a long time, and this is how he's starting off 2023. Can't beat Okada, can't beat Omega. He can't transcend. He can't move to the next level. This story continues. Kenny Omega just waltzes in, says, you know what? I'm the best. And I can reclaim this throne anytime I want. I can make New Japan mine once again just by, if I feel like it. It's fucking ruled. This was amazing. Just an amazing, outstanding match. Just incredible. And you know what? Here's the legit thing. Anyone who looks at this and is like, this is a bit of a litmus test to know on what level of wrestling appreciation you are with people. If they look at this and like, I don't get it, or it's like, oh yeah, that was pretty cool. Well, then you know where people lie on this one here. Just extraordinary stuff. Extraordinary stuff. The bar is so high. It is so incredibly high. One of the absolute greatest matches I have ever seen. And I have seen a lot of I have seen a lot of all-time greats over the past 12 months. I've seen more than I thought I'd see. And now we're starting 2023 with this. And you know what popped into my head? The minute I saw the finish, I was like, there's your main event for Forbidden Door 2, right there. Because as I was talking way at the start of the show, which is going long tonight, who cares? Way at the start of the show, I said, the biggest match that you can put on in North America right now is Omega Ospreay 2. And if Tony Khan puts that on in June for the next Forbidden Door show, it's an instant sellout. Instant sellout. He can sell out that show on the back of that match purely. He will make a killing on pay-per-view buys for that match. That's your main event. There's nothing else. There's nothing else bigger than that. You can put Kazuchika Okada and CM Punk on it if you want, but it will not be bigger than this match here. Not in North America, not right here. For real though, I'm sure that Omega and Gedo and TK and Gedo came to this arrangement. For sure. TK's like, yeah, I'll send you Omega, and he can give him the big win at the Dome, and we'll have the rematch on my home soil, and your guy will go over, and then Omega will carry your strap around on my show. How about that? Don't forget there's a title involved in this. You remember? Anyway, what a highlight, what a match. And never in my entire life did I ever think I would say, poor Okada has to follow this. And here I am thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, I am here wondering how Kazuchika Okada, one of the greatest to ever do it, how is he going to be able to follow this? Well, it turns out he followed up pretty well, nonetheless, as he successfully defeated Jay White to become once again IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. Okada and White were probably like, well, I mean, they were probably warned. Like, well, okay, what are you gonna do? I would have let a match breathe between these two. Like, if I had been, I understand the positioning of the titles and the booking, but I would have put the Never title before the main event. You know what I mean? Anyway. Anyway, I enjoyed the main event quite a bit, and honestly, if it hadn't been for the match before, that would have easily been the match of the night. I thought it was very good. I don't think it was Jay White's and Kazu's best match, but it was pretty good. Okada gets his groove on early, but Gedo starts dragging Jay White out of the ring to avoid all the offense. White fights back with a Saito suplex. He's in control. DDT on Okada. Facebuster on the ropes, and he rope hangs Okada as well. White, of course, complains to the ref about the slow counts. Two. Sweet. Yeah, you know. I like the way Jay White's brain works as a heel. We get a flapjack. Okada fights back with a DDT and a flapjack. Okada props Jay White up top and lands the top rope drop kick. So Jay White falls to the floor. Okada's playing the hits right now. Double DDTs out on the ramp. Missile shotgun drop kick by Okada as well into the money clip. White fights out of it. Hits a flatliner and a German suplex. Lands the blade buster and a fisherman suplex as well. Jay White chop blocks Okada. Starts chopping Okada as well, but Okada is no selling those chops. White runs the ropes right into a drop kick. We're in and out of moves until the money clip again, and a spinning tombstone and an enormous spinning rainmaker. Like, you really could have ended the match on that one, but no, we're back into the money clip again. Flipping senton by Okada to the floor. Elbow drop follows, goes for the rainmaker. No, Jay White just sits down. He just, I'm gonna sandbag you, buddy. He just sits down. Okada's just slugging at Jay White at this point. White spits on Okada, which forces Okada to make a mistake right into a slam by Jay White. He suplexes Okada to the floor. Then he gets a sleeper suplex, a regal plex, a bloody Sunday. Blade Runner is blocked by a German suplex by Okada. Backslide reversed into a short arm rainmaker and another short arm rainmaker. You know what I mean. Without this spinny deal. Then he lands the landslide, goes for the rainmaker. That's usually the setup, right? But no, we get a Blade Runner instead. It takes a while to get the cover. Okada can be put away. White starts landing rainmakers. Goes for a Blade Runner himself. No. Gets reversed into a quick rainmaker by Okada. Covers, but White kicks out. They trade some forearms, a chop by Jay White. And Zaguri by Okada. They're in and out of moves. Okada lands the Blade Runner, the Cobra Flosion, and the Rainmaker for the win. Super well worked. Strong main event. Great psychology. I seem to, and I'd have to go back and watch, but I feel like their match at the Super Show at Madison Square Garden with Ring of Honor, I feel like that was their best match. I still feel it holds up better than this one, but this was very good nonetheless. This is a very strong main event. It just got overshadowed, man. After the match, Shingo Takagi comes out to line himself up as the next challenger. We pay a final tribute to Antonio Inoki to wrap up the 50 years of New Japan. And on this, the Antonio Inoki Memorial Show. And that was Wrestle Kingdom. And now, to wrap this up, we're going to talk about New Japan New Year's Dash 2023. I'm not going to break down the matches because New Year's Dash is not necessarily about the matches. It's about the events, right? It's the reset. Look, these are the directions we're starting off in the year. Things are supposed to feel fresh. And this was a very fun New Year's Dash. Let's get right to it. Started off with a 6-man tag team match with a House of Torture defeated Red Narita, Tiger Mask, and Hanma. Like I said, the match happened. It was whatever it was. But after the match, the story is after the match, the House of Torture attack Narita. They attack poor Ren Narita. And Hanma and Tiger Mask aren't helping him out. What the hell is going on? No. Minoru Suzuki runs in to make the save, but he gets overwhelmed as well. So El Desperado runs in to make the save. Look at that. The recently defunct Suzuki-gun still has alliances. There's still friendships that exist. And El Desperado and Suzuki still have close bonds. They all come in, they chase the House of Torture away. Despy and Suzuki fist bump, but not Narita. There's some tension there. They stare at him throughout the rest of the segment here. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but they're clearly setting up a six-man tag match for the IWGP six-man tag team titles, which are property of House of Torture right now. So I'm not thrilled about that. But you know what? I think it's, they didn't say that they were starting up a new unit, a faction, whatever, but it's a good setup for Narita, I say, to be paired with Suzuki and Desperado here. I think that, not a bad way to rebound off of not winning the TV title. I think this is a good way to bounce back. Get another six-man tag. But before that, we have Doki, Taichi, Uncle Nabu, Kanemaru, and Taka Michinoku. They all come out to announce that they're forming a new faction out of the shadow of Suzuki-gun, and they're calling themselves Just Four Guys, which is a highly ill-advised name. It stinks. It's bad. I understand why they called themselves that, especially if Taka Michinoku is supposed to be like the leader of the group. Taka has a promotion called Just Tap Out. These are just four guys. It's not good. It's not a good name. Maybe look, if I'm a Japanese native, maybe the sounds are really cool. But for us English speakers, it's just bad. Anyway, they have the match. Just four guys. Anyway, Doki, Taichi, and Kanemaru, they defeat the United Empire group of Catch 2-2 and Will Ospreay, who was out. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Ospreay back wrestling the very next day? What? And I don't have much to say about the match outside the fact that Ospreay's mad. Ospreay's pissed off. And he was very violent and crisp and a little stiff at points. After the match, Ospreay kicks Taka Michinoku in the sack and he mouths off with Taichi. So I guess we're setting up Ospreay and Taichi very soon. Then we have another six-man tag team match, the TMDK faction of Mikey Nicholls, Shane Haste, and Zack Sabre Jr. defeat Hiroki Goto, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yoshihashi. So this is TMDK's first outing under their new leadership. And TMDK get the win by pinning Yoshihashi. So they're straight off the bat, TMDK are lined up for a shot at Bishamon's tag team titles. After the match, Kosei Fujita gets inducted as part of the group. Of course, Kosei Fujita has been doing fantastic work with Zack Sabre Jr. looking out for him. Looking out for him and doing the promo of the year. It's good stuff. So TMDK now have 4 members officially. Then we have an 8-man tag team match. Taguchi, Shota Umino, Togi Makabe, and Yo defeat the LIJ group of Bushi, Hiromu Takahashi, Sanada, and Tetsuya Naito. The story here is that Yo gets the pin on Hiromu, setting him up as the first challenger as Lio Rush nurses an injury. Challenger, of course, for Hiromu's newly won junior heavyweight title, Belt San. But, people were saying that this is a contingency plan. But I think this was the plan. It was a contingency plan because Sho and Lio Rush are in a tag team, right? And Sho and Lio Rush are in a tag team. And people are like, well, since Lio Rush has been injured, well, they're probably going to do just, they're going to do this in the meantime, right? I'm like, really? Because Rush was supposed to work Battle of Los Angeles regardless, right? So I don't know if this is a contingency, but I think this was the plan. I don't think this is this is something that happened because Lio Rush got injured necessarily. Then an 8-man tag team match. Hikuleo, Tama Tonga, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Master Wato defeated the Bullet Club team of El Phantasmo, Jay White, Kenta, and Taiji Ishimori. So this was an eventful post-match. First of all, El Phantasmo sets himself up as Tama Tonga's first challenger for the Never title. I'm down with that. I love El Phantasmo. I think he's great. And then Jay White attacks Hikuleo mercilessly. Then he picks up the microphone, cuts a promo, and he blames Hikuleo leaving Bullet Club as the reason everything fell apart, basically, for Jay White this year. Why he lost the title and so on and so forth. So, since Hikuleo took everything away from Jay White, he wants to take everything away from Hikuleo, everything that he loves, working in Japan, working with his brother. His dad loved working in Japan. Well, I'm going to take all of that away because he's challenging Hikuleo to a loser leaves Japan match. Loser leaves Japan. And over the past couple of days, we found out that Hikuleo was, there was interest in WWE for Hikuleo to bring him on board. I can see that. And then today, got some news out of from Fightful that Jay White's contract is up relatively soon. Let me read the thing here. Jay White's contract is up relatively soon and is expected to leave New Japan Pro Wrestling per those in the company. Those that we've spoken to believe both WWE and All Elite Wrestling are interested in getting the former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. However, WWE sources seemed confident they would land him. However, that's far from official, as it was noted from sources within multiple companies that they can't officially reach out to him until his deal is up. Until that happens, there's no guarantee he'll leave New Japan. So it's January, and January is the annual Jay White is leaving New Japan discourse. Like it happens every year. And honestly, and I want to make this clear, I'm not shitting on Fightful or Sean, who do fantastic work. This is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying, well, he's not leaving. He might leave, he might not. I don't know. I mean, the point, all I'm saying is that over the past, I think this is the third year running, if not fourth, where we start up January and it's like, well, Jay White might show up in the Royal Rumble. Jay White's dissatisfied with New Japan. All this off the back that in 2018, apparently he signed a 7-year contract, which Jay White has denied. So I don't, this contract bullshit that's been around, that's what it is. It's bullshit. But, there's a lot of stuff going around right now. So I just think it's funny that we're back to, once again, January, and we got another Jay White might be leaving story. And frankly, it's the same position, whatever he wants to do to make himself happy is great. I do want to point something very significant out of this, right? First of all, the match is not a loser leaves New Japan match. It is a loser leaves Japan. And there's a strong contingency of New Japan shows that happen on North American soil. So maybe Jay White is just like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the United States for a while. And I'm going to wrestle there, and I'm going to try some different things. Might work some indie dates, maybe some AEW, or maybe work for WWE regardless. Because what is he going to look forward to this year? What is Jay White's perspective for 2023? Let's have a little fun. What's his perspective on staying in Japan for another year? Fight Okada again? Fight Tanahashi again? Fight Naito? Like what? The thing with Jay White at this point is that he's been around the block a few times. Maybe he just needs a breath of fresh air. I'm not saying that he's absolutely leaving. I'm not saying that he's absolutely going, but clearly in the, what Fightful is bringing up here, his contract is not up and he cannot be officially contacted. They can't reach out to him until the deal is up. So he's still signed as it stands. And contract is up relatively soon. What is relatively soon? A month? A couple of months? A week? It's like, it could be so many things. But here's the top thing. Here's the most important element. And I know that you, listeners of the Best D-List podcast with the A+ audience, I know you guys are able to pick up on this. There's a match that is happening in New Japan, which is essentially a loser leaves town match, right? Let's call it that. Loser leaves town match. All of a sudden, we get a report that WWE's interested in Hikuleo. Then all of a sudden, we get a report that Jay White's contract is coming up and he might go to WWE. Isn't that convenient? Isn't that just unique? I can't be the only one who sees this, right? I cannot be the only one who's sitting here going, yeah, this is really odd. The timing is a little too precious here, if you ask me. Look, Jay White is a worker. He is a pro wrestler's pro wrestler. He's a worker from top to bottom, A to Z. I would have a tendency to not believe anything that guy says because that's what he does, and I'm okay with it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like stomping my feet and going, "Oh, I can't trust him." No. Like, it's fine. He should be doing that. He's a heel. He's a wrestler. Wrestlers lie. He should string people along. He should be able to leverage whatever he can leverage to get some buzz going around. Now everyone's going to be focused on this loser leaves town match. Oh, I heard Jay White's going to WWE. That's not specifically what this report says, by the way. We got to make sure that we read this properly. It's just funny because, again, this year, January comes along, Jay White's on his way out of New Japan. And then he's having a loser leaves town match. Oh, and by the way, we're getting reports that one guy might be out and the other guy might be out. Come on, fellas. I see what you're doing. I see what's going on here. Again, I'm not saying he's leaving. I'm not saying he's staying. I'm saying right now, like, let's have this conversation after the match. Any which way can happen here at this point. I'm saying it's not as cut and dry as we heard reports that Jay White would be leaving. There's reports that Jay White leaves every year, annually, January, on the button. They just happen. And now, again, I can't emphasize this enough. Both guys suddenly have interest to go to WWE, or WWE is interested in them. These reports start leaking, and now both guys could be on the way out. Now everyone is going to watch this match. Everyone's going to pay attention to it. It's going to be newsworthy. You see how this goes? Workers working. I love it. Shingo's King of Pro Wrestling again. Defeated Great-O-Khan, Sho, Yano. They have the belt now. It's no longer a trophy. It's a belt. It's weird. Weird because of what happened after the main event here. Surprise main event, Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega in a tag team match. Paired up to defeat Aaron Henare and Jeff Cobb. And there you have it. Like, that was a fun main event. Fun little surprise here. Two eternal rivals in a dream team scenario, not unlike Okada and Tanahashi. I thought this was great. Jeff Cobb gets into Kenny's face, which is an understated match I'm super stoked for. Jeff Cobb versus Kenny Omega for the U.S. title. They might even run that at San Jose. I don't know. Or on AEW. But this is a very understated match that I'm very excited to see. And then Shingo returns to challenge Okada, and he's got the King of Pro Wrestling belt, and Okada's like, yeah, I started this King of Pro Wrestling stuff. This is my fault, right? But they're gonna have their match. Are they gonna be unifying? And I think it'd be, because there's a lot of talk about unification, but I don't know if we're unifying the belts. Like, they literally just released the title. I don't know, man. The belt, I mean, the King of Pro Wrestling. And then would you immediately unify it? Why would you want to unify? Why would you unify the history of... why would you unify? You know? I don't know. Why bring in the history of the King of Pro Wrestling? We'll see. I mean, the King of Pro Wrestling, I always saw it as a pandemic solution, sort of to keep things interesting, you know? I'm already putting too much thought into it. But New Japan's on an upswing. This was a really fun New Year's Dash. Eventful, like a New Year's Dash should be. Feels fresh, new directions, new faces, new units. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we are going to wrap up this week's weekly wrestling inspection. That's right, I sniffled. I sniffled during the theme. What are you going to do about it? Oh, folks, I am recording this live right now, and the reports are coming out apparently. That WWE, oh my God, hang on a second. I don't want to say absolutely anything. Look, this is what we're going to do. Because this has the potential to be a huge thing. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited about big potentials. Cassidy Haynes, I like Cassidy. I have a tendency to trust him. This is what we're going to do. There are big rumors right now happening live that we cannot confirm with assurance about WWE's sale. It's apparently going down. But this is what we're going to do. If you're watching live right now, stay here. We're going to keep the stream running, and we are going to take we're going to stick together as a team throughout all of this. So, we're going to figure this out together, all right? We're going to stick together for a while still. I can still keep this streaming. Otherwise, if you're listening to this on demand, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast application, we're officially going to wrap things up immediately. If there's any news that breaks and I get some good content out of it, maybe it'll be some extra content. But as it stands right now, we're going to wrap up today's edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. Remember to like and subscribe. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if this is your first time here. I appreciate it a great deal. For you popping in, but yeah, we're gonna and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Those things help out tremendously. But in the meantime, I will be back at the very latest, I should say, Thursday for my AEW Dynamite review. Be sure you're around for that, and if you subscribe, that way you won't miss out. So, hang around if you're watching live. If not, hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thank you for popping by, and I'll see you next time.